This happened to me when I was 14, or rather should I say, this happened to us. If you were to ask my cousin how many times his parents bounced from house to house, he would just shrug his shoulders. That's how often his parents would move. Sometimes it wouldn't even be houses, it would be apartments. I do miss the times when he did live in apartments, as whenever we could play hide and seek with our closest cousins, it would definitely be more exciting than just playing with some random kids from the apartment complex. Anyways, that's not important to the story. His parents were always a bit weird, always constantly moving and leaving for business trips. That's how they could afford to move from place to place. And if you were to ask me what his parents did for a living, I literally have no idea, because I barely talked to them. And if I ever did, it was at parties they threw, but you know how that goes. The simple hey and how you doing. All I know is that his dad's a contractor, and that's literally all. I remember this day like the back of my hand. It was hot as hell that day, almost like 100 degrees. It felt more like 110, but it wasn't nothing too bad. I remember this day like the back of my hand. It was hot as hell that day, almost like 100 degrees, but it felt more like 110. It wasn't nothing too bad. I used to always have sleepovers at his house whenever I could get the chance, and this day was no different, or so I thought. I arrived at his house in the early hours of the afternoon, and as expected, his parents were away on a business trip. We opened some of the windows so we could let the hot air out. Granted, this probably didn't help our case at all, it most likely made it worse. We turned on each fan to max blast and went upstairs to play some video games on his Xbox. We played for about an hour or two, and eventually, we both got hungry. We agreed to go to the spot that was a 10-minute drive from his house. We got dressed, and before we left, we closed some of the windows. That way, if anybody were to drive or walk by, they wouldn't just hop through the window. The irony, while writing this, still hits me like a brick to this day. We got in my car and drove to the spot we agreed to get food at. I say my car because my mother trusted me enough to let me drive one of her spare cars. As bad as that sounds, she trusted me enough on the road by myself. She knows I would never jeopardize my life or even remotely drive recklessly. We ordered our food and quickly headed back home to avoid traffic. When we got home, we sat in the living room and watched YouTube or whatnot while we ate our food. We sat there for about a good hour or two before we headed back upstairs to his room. Around 7 or 8, we closed each window as it was getting dark out. I'll cut out the small details, as you can use your imagination what teenagers our age would do. I got thirsty and decided to go downstairs to get me a cup of water before I decided to go to bed. It was around 10 at this point, and I was getting tired, so quickly I filled up my cup and headed back upstairs. My cousin was already in bed, scrolling through social media and whatnot. Shortly after, he rolled on his side and fell asleep. I couldn't fall asleep because of how incredibly hot it was. But after 10 minutes of rolling around and flipping the pillow, I fell asleep. I woke up some time later. I checked my phone, and it was 1 in the morning. I'm not sure what woke me up, but something woke me up. I rubbed my eyes and took a sip of water. Now that I was aware and awake, I heard it. Footsteps moving around downstairs. At first, I chalked it up as his parents coming back early from the business trip, but the footsteps kept pacing between one place. I heard drawers being opened and rummaged with. Footsteps going between the living room and guest bedroom. I walked over to my cousin and shook him awake. He groggily asked, "What?" I asked him, "Are your parents supposed to be home right now?" His head snapped to look at me and said, "No, they're not supposed to be back until Tuesday." This made my heart skip a beat. I quickly tiptoed to the door and locked it. Just as I was about to walk away from the door, I heard it. Footsteps coming slowly up the stairs as if they were trying to be quiet. I know my cousin heard it too, because as soon as I turned my head to look in his direction, he was already quietly running to the window to unlock it. We were trying to lift it up, but the piece of crap was so old, it wouldn't budge. We were grunting as quietly as we could, but it wasn't quite enough. We heard the doorknob try to be turned, but obviously it was locked. I think this angered the person on the other side, because when he saw the door didn't budge, he started kicking and ramming into it. Now the clock was ticking, adrenaline kicked in, and we finally got the window to open. I yelled at my cousin, "Anthony, go!" He leaped down into the grass, and now it was my turn. I peeped my head over the edge and saw the fall. It had to be 10 to 20 feet. Suddenly, I heard the door being busted open. I didn't think twice and just threw myself out the window. I landed on my right arm and backside. I looked up and saw a man, long messy hair and his eyes wide open, looking right at me. I quickly got up and we bolted to the neighbor's house where we used their phone to call 911. Police showed up minutes later and investigated the house. They searched every room and every hiding place there could be, but he was nowhere to be found. He was already long gone. Later, I found out from paramedics I had a sprained collarbone and a bicep. Luckily, it wasn't nothing too serious. After that, the police took information regarding what happened and took a description of it. They said they would contact us if anything ever came up, but we never got a call back. I didn't tell my mom about the incident in fear of never getting to sleep over at his house ever again, and told her that I fell from a very high rock and landed on my side. She took me to a doctor because I complained about pain in my shoulder. Me and my cousin both assumed that when we left to go get food or whenever we went upstairs and before we closed the windows, the man simply just climbed through and hid in the basement, waiting until we fell asleep to rob us, or maybe even worse. We rarely even talk anymore, but whenever we bring it up, we both laugh at it. I don't think the man was ever caught. I just hope he doesn't do anything bad to anyone else like he could have done to us. An incident happened to me that shook me to this day. I was doing the usual and reading a book on my bed, getting ready to sleep, but out of nowhere, I heard a sound. It was as if my window at the front of my house broke. I was startled. I didn't know what to do, so I hid under my bed. I waited there for a while. I would say about 10 to 15 minutes, as I heard people talking to each other. From what I heard, it was a man and a woman. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but I understood only that they were arguing about something. You may think I should have called the police or my parents, but I had no phone with me, and my parents didn't trust me with one. So I just laid there, silently. After a while, I heard my bedroom door creak as they entered, but for some strange reason, they never came inside, and they left the bedroom door open. After 30 minutes or so, they finally left. As they did, I ran to my neighbor's house, and they called the cops. There wasn't much the cops could do. They just checked my house, called my parents, and left. The odd part was, those people didn't take anything. This happened a couple years ago, and even now, I still think about it sometimes. It started slowly, just weird stuff happening around our house, but it built up into one of the scariest moments I've ever had. We live in a 3-story home. My family tends to stay up late. One night, around 3 a.m., my uncle Alex stepped outside to throw out the trash. Nothing unusual, it was a regular thing, but later, he told us that as soon as he got out there, he felt this strong sense of being watched. He looked around and saw my mom's van parked in the driveway. The darkness around it was thick, and he swore he saw somebody sitting inside it. The windows were tinted, so he couldn't make it out clearly, but the feeling was strong enough that it stayed with him. Around the same time, my mom started noticing weird stuff with their car. Things being moved around, random items missing, and one day, she found a beer bottle inside it. She knew it didn't belong to any of us. She used to leave her car unlocked because we all trusted the neighborhood, but after that, she started locking it every time. I sleep on the 3rd floor, and my window faces the front of the house. At night, I started hearing sounds, light footsteps, and a distinct clicking from outside. We have a cement stairs leading up to our front porch, but a few of the steps are loose, and when somebody steps on them, they make a loud specific sound. You can't really mistake it. At first, I assumed it was my other uncle, Mario, who's younger and goes out to party or club almost every night. He comes home at all hours, so late night noise wasn't weird. But something about these sounds felt different. Slower, almost like whoever it was trying not to be heard. That's what started to bother me. One night, after watching a scary movie, I didn't want to sleep alone, so I made a little spot on the floor in my grandma's room. She has a security monitor with the feed showing our driveway. I glanced at it while trying to fall asleep, and I saw something that made my stomach drop. A tall man was standing at the edge of the camera's view, just standing there, still, not moving. I blinked a few times, thinking maybe I was imagining it, but he didn't go away. I grabbed my phone and messaged our family group chat to ask if anybody had just gotten home, because sometimes people do come home late. But everybody responded, saying they were either inside or still out. I looked back at the monitor. He was gone. That moment stuck with me, but nothing else happened right away. Then came the day I'll never forget. It was about a month later. I had stayed home from school, and I was the only one in the house. Everyone else was at work or in class. It was a quiet afternoon, around 2 p.m., and I was just laying in bed, scrolling TikTok, when I heard a man's voice and a faint hum of a small engine. I looked out my window and saw a golf cart parked in our driveway with a man in a blue shirt standing next to it. He didn't look especially threatening, but there was something about him that felt off. None of our family cars were home, and nobody was supposed to be visiting. I tried calling my mom, who works at a hospital, but she didn't answer. So I called my stepdad and asked if somebody was supposed to be coming by. He said no, and I told him what I saw, and his voice got serious. He told me to keep watching and to let him know if anything changes. Not long after, my mom called back. The moment I explained to her, she said, "Call the police, right now." So I did. I called 911 and told them everything. The dispatcher told me to hide, but before I did, I had this terrible feeling. I wasn't sure if anyone had locked the doors before leaving that morning. I ran downstairs. The front door was locked, but when I got back, it was wide open. My heart dropped. I slammed it shut and locked it as fast as I could, but almost immediately, I heard it. The doorknob rattling, hard. Someone was trying to get in. I looked back and I saw him. He was shirtless, tall, and definitely not the same man I had seen in the driveway. He just looked skinnier and just off. Like something wasn't right with him. He was yanking the handle like he had just missed getting in. It honestly felt like he knew I had just locked it. I turned and sprinted up the stairs, locked myself in my parents' room, and stayed on the line with 911 dispatcher the whole time. I was shaking so hard I could barely speak. Every second felt like forever. The police arrived a few minutes later and searched the house and the property. There was nobody there. No man in a blue shirt, no shirtless guy, no signs of a break-in, nothing. They reviewed the security footage, but it didn't show anything helpful. The man in the driveway had stayed far from the camera's center, and the back angle was just too dark to catch anything clearly. Just weird movement in the edges. It was like whoever they were, they knew exactly where not to be seen. To this day, I still don't know who they are. Were they working together? Was one watching while the other tried to get in? Or was it two separate people who, by some terrifying coincidence, both ended up at our house? I try not to think about it too much, but sometimes I do. What if I hadn't locked that back door in time? And just a few weeks ago, I went back to visit the neighborhood. I looked down the street and saw a golf cart. Same sound, same shape, and same look. I didn't wait around to see who was driving it though.